So, and Josh, let's get back to you talking about you'd rather have Russell Westbrook than Ben Simmons, okay? And LA obviously would rather have Russell Westbrook than Ben Simmons or whoever the hell else they would want to have, because they stayed the same, man. What do you think LA goes from here? They want to go to the buyout market. And from the beginning of the season or from the offseason when they made the Russell Westbrook move to now, how do you feel about it?
I was surprised that they didn't move anybody. It felt like they needed a change. Honestly, I would have sold pretty much anything to see Dame and LeBron get together. I think that, I'm surprised that didn't happen, or they didn't just try to make a change just for the sake of it. I think the team as it's presently constructed is going to need to figure out some new lineups, but I don't know if there is one. LeBron and AD play together, and they still, are losing to teams that you wouldn't expect. Even when favored, and I think that it's been weird to watch that dynamic. But I just think that Westbrook brings some explosiveness. Maybe he doesn't come in for the same role, but I'd rather have a guy that's not afraid to shoot and maybe keeps teams honest as opposed to just hoping the pick and roll works perpetually. And I think that that's maybe the difference that I have there. Westbrook's shot isn't great, but he's, hitting something eventually. But a guy that won't shoot the three can't keep a defense honest ultimately. And so I think that that's my concern. Maybe again, who knows what his development's been like? We haven't seen him play in a long time. And so we can only, recent memories shows us the worst moment of his career to this point. And so it's easy to harp on that, but hopeful that he can just somehow slide in there and make it work. But, I think my concern is, does he have the yips ultimately? How much of this is the yips? And we're seeing that same situation that played out in Philly before, with a guard that's now in Orlando or wherever he's ended up. And, I think that dynamic is just weird to watch play out again. So
almost forgot about him for a second. That's the first time I've thought about Markelle Fultz in some time.
Dang, that could have been Jason Tatum, huh? Or Lonzo Ball.
Even De'Aaron Fox would have been nice.
Right?
Sean, man, so I don't remember what your original take was on the Lakers when they made the Westbrook move. I don't know if you thought they should have, went and just got Buddy Hield and, added the shooter that helps the team out down the stretch, or get Russell Westbrook, who we thought would cover up for street clothes, because we know street clothes is gonna be in street clothes.
Well, it's also one of those things where AD, since coming back, has been amazing, but this year on 3-point attempts he's been really bad. So their spacing, even with just LeBron and AD, has been worse than normal. I didn't think it was going to work purely because the NBA is all about space at this point. You need to create space for your two superstars. I don't care how good LeBron's and AD's pick and roll is if Westbrook is the one in the corner, because they're going to give him all the room in the world. I understand that maybe being able to shoot and being a threat is better than not being a threat, but I've seen plenty of plays where Westbrook, they just leave him there. They take a couple seconds to go follow out on him. And I think one of the things that I think is, his offense, he's been Westbrook this season. I understand that, but his lackadaisical, almost aloof presence on defense might be worse. I saw I believe it was against the Nets, where he left Patty Mills, who I think had hit 6 threes at that point, wide open for the game-winning three. And it's just, he's been that way his entire career. And you can say all this stuff about, I've heard a bunch of stuff on all the talk shows about he needs to accept a different role, he needs to change, he needs to do more of the dirty work. It's not going to happen, because it would have happened by now. The weirdest thing to me is how, well, not weird, it's kind of hilarious as someone who's not a fan of the Lakers, but just how meddling their ownership is with their GM and the process of, rotations and who gets to see playing time. I mean, if Frank Vogel had his way, you can't tell me that Russell Westbrook wouldn't be coming off the bench at this point. They kind of done it almost without doing it so far. They'll start him and then they'll take him off the floor after the first 4 minutes just to kind of have him run with the second team, which is probably the smartest way to not kill his ego, but kind of move him around in the rotation, which is a smart idea. But he just, it's one of those guys where he's got to accept the dirty work. He's got to lock in on D, or he's got to play less. Because they have some of the shooters between Austin Reeves and even Malik Monk has looked good when he's played with LeBron and those guys. You have some of the shooters.
Laker.
What's up?
Malik Monk is the third best Laker.
I think he might be next to Stanley, Pistons legend Stanley Johnson. Like there's players on that team, and like you can't tell me that LeBron hasn't taken a worse team to the finals because I've seen him do it at least twice. It's just, I think it's Westbrook's ego at this point. He's got to accept that for them to win, he either needs to be a sixth man or act as a big man. He's got to set picks, he's got to go for rebounds, and he's got to play big. He can do it. It's just, I don't think he's wired that way at this point.
I think that this thing just keeps seeming to happen to LeBron, and maybe I'm just a jaded lover from what happened in Miami, but it feels like at a certain point, about 3 years into LeBron's tenure anywhere, people just start watching him, and they don't play well, they don't do anything, they forget, they can't get their game off. Maybe LeBron has taken all of their talents away or something, but it just seems like at every point in his career, it's about 3 years in that people just like on his teams are no longer able to enhance what he does so amazingly. And, which is like the whole game of basketball. And it feels like the same thing is happening to LA that happened in Miami, where it's like, it's flaming out. The experiment isn't working, regardless of whatever, what pieces they put around him. I don't know. I think that Westbrook is what he is, but they need to figure out a lineup with paper thin AD that like is going to use him best. Like if he can still put up 50 and he can potentially be New Orleans, LeBron's got to take a step back if he wants to go anywhere. I think that's the only, they go as far as AD takes them, and he's got to let him do that until he either breaks down or, gives up. I think that's really where they're at, where they got to try something different and not put it in LeBron's hands all the time.
It's wild. It's like one of the first players I've seen win. I just didn't think it was going to happen where AD would win a championship and then go immediately on autopilot mode. He was, in my opinion, he was the Finals MVP. He was amazing, defensively, offensively, and then whether it's, he always gets dinged up a little bit, but he comes to play he's been playing better since he came back, but this season he seems checked out a little bit.
Let me shoot AB a little bit of bail. AD a little bit of bail, okay? I'm not shooting AB any bail at all. That fucking jackass. But AD last season, he came back out of shape, like most of the league did, because the league pushed up the start date, and players had already had like off-season routine set up to, okay, I'm chilling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm going to start ramping up here. And in the middle of that, the league says, "Oh no, we're starting now," and everyone's not LeBron.
Especially after you played in the finals,
right,
a month and a half.
Exactly, and guess what? If I win a championship, I'm celebrating. I've been locked in the bubble. We're having all these private parties that nobody knows about. I'm enjoying my championship stuff. Now, I don't understand why Luka came back fat and out of shape, because he got put out in the first round, which is where, that's kind of his MO. But I'm going to leave Luka alone, because the Luka hive on YouTube is absolutely crazy. But with Westbrook, we talk about Westbrook needing to take on a new role, but the problem is that he hasn't been humbled. He has not been truly humbled. What he said the other day, I'm still going to make 90 million, okay? It's hard to humble somebody who makes 90 million. What humbled Melo? He got traded, bought out, and then, left for the Wolves. Nobody picked him up. He finally gets picked up by the Blazers, and he's coming off the bench. So Melo gets humbled by that, and if you listen to him in any media he's done, he talked about where he just like took a break from basketball. He's like, I've been the best player on my team my entire life, and now you want me to come off the bench? Like, and even though Paul George and Russell Westbrook were more productive NBA players at that time, at no point in their careers were they ever more talented basketball players than Carmelo Anthony. So it's like, in Melo's head, he's like, I'm better than them, even though he wasn't at that point in his career, and then he goes down to the Suns, and the Rockets. Daryl does what Daryl does. He's going to make the best team decision. And Westbrook needs to get humbled. And they talk about protecting Westbrook's ego. Look here, we're paying you $45 million a year. You can tuck your ego up your ass, bro. Like, the ego's in the paycheck. And if it's really about winning, and if it's not about winning, let's get you the hell up out of here. Because GM LeBron started doing what GM LeBron does. He's all about the experiment. But when it comes trade deadline time, If LeBron don't like the team like that, they lost that Blazers game because LeBron was trying to make a statement. He does it every single year. He's not confident in his team. Around the trade deadline, he gets to talking real funny, acting weird, dropping games he's not supposed to drop. And I think that's what happened.